Hello, everybody. This is me, Ben Calder, here for the BTPA, the Bowen Therapy Professional Association. And we've got a really interesting interview for you today with CBS College of Bowen Studies tutor Jun Chow, who was originally born in Hong Kong and moved to the UK when he was 15. Did his degree in animal science, and his early interest in equine Bowen led him through into Bowen technique, and he is now qualified Bowen practitioner for humans and horses, as well as teaching with the Bowen College here, the College of Bowen Studies. And he does this wonderful CPD class, the Neurological Assessment and Tools, which is looking a lot at manual muscle testing and understanding the neurological approach. He's also PDTR trained, has a real interest in tennis, and he's just developing a new way of helping Bowen students to develop their businesses, and supports a WhatsApp community of Bowen practitioners and students to help them. And we had a really exciting interview today. It was really great talking to him, and you'll see his passion and his enthusiasm, exactly what we need in Bowen technique for these young tutors coming through now. So I hope that you enjoy this as much as I did recording it. And just to get the fun bit out of the way, remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share this stuff out so that more of the world can understand the wonderful benefits of Bowen technique. Let's get on with the interview. Jun, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, good. Nice to have you here on the interviews. It's always nice for us. We've spent a lot of time speaking to what I would class as the heavy hitters, the really experienced, been in it for 3 decades kind of practitioners. But you're, in a sense, relatively, I mean, it's what, 8, 9 years now, so it's not so new if we think about it in those terms. But you're relatively new in the teaching field in Bowen. We've got some great history to talk about and some great interest there. So why don't we start with just a little bit of a potted history about you, how you got into bodywork, how you got into Bowen, and talk about the equine side as well. It's all good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm from Hong Kong originally. So I grew up in Hong Kong and I came over to the UK to study when I was about 15. And I've always wanted to do something animal based. In fact, I wanted to be a vet in the first place. So I came here, I did university. In fact, I did animal science as a degree, looking to actually, instead of going to the vet side, looking to do body work for physio for horses. That actually came from my wife, who met in university. She's a horse trainer. She's an equine trainer. So in fact, we live in the horse yard. So I wanted to become a equine therapist. I didn't know what yet. I thought physio or maybe Chiro, McTimoney. There's so many options. And my wife had a Bowen therapist for horses back then. I am the equine Bowen therapist of a yard now, so she doesn't have to pay extra. In fact, sometimes I have to pay her. So this therapist came over one day and I was free, so I went out to have a chat with him and just observed him working on one of our horses. And he was explaining, what Bowen is. He was explaining how effective it is on horses, and we already know how effective it is for our own horses because of the results that we've been getting from him. So I got speaking, and every time he came over, I came out to have a chat, bring him a cup of coffee to make sure he gives me extra information. So then I started getting more interested in it. So then I went on Google, as you do, and have a little search and found the equine school, ESCPT, for in the UK, which was run by Beth. And so I wanted to sign on the course. I came in contact with Beth, and Beth said, look, you can sign up for a course, but actually it will be better for you if you do the human side of the Bowen first. And so I did a little Google search, and the 2 results that came up, I picked the right one. So I started my journey on the human Bowen course alongside with the equine course. And so I did the both. I finished both qualification. I did the human course initially just so that I can do the equine course, really, if I'm being honest. But what I found after the 2 qualifications, so it took me roughly 2 years to finish them. Once I finished the qualification, I found actually I enjoy treating human a lot more. And my understanding of human was accelerating a lot faster than the animal side of things. So although when I started my business, I was treating both. I had equine clients, I have human clients. I was gearing more towards the human, and I delved deeper and deeper into the human. And then what I find is that all the knowledge I got from university about animals actually apply to human largely. Our bodies, mammals' body, they don't work too indifferent to each other's. So it was actually easy to apply that knowledge into human side of things. And so I started treating more human. Initially, they were mostly riders, horse riders, but then I started getting into it, and the business starts to grow. And now, apart from my own horses, there's only a handful of paying equine clients I have, really. Mostly I work in my clinic. So here I am. So that's the business side of things. And then while I was training, I met Joe. Joe was actually, when I was training to become a Bowen therapist, Joe was training to be a teacher. And we met each other, and she just picked up a few things from myself, how who I am, how I behave. So later on down the line, Joe actually brought my name up one of the CBS meeting, and so here I am, so starting to teach for the college as well.
Brilliant. Love that. So am I hearing you right as well, that before you decided to start training in Bowen, you hadn't actually been treated in Bowen? Is that right?
That's very true. That's very true. In fact, the body world side of things, apart from animals, I'm not too familiar with in the human side. So obviously, I know your typical physio, chiro, osteo, that kind of thing. But I'm not, I'm not familiar with it. In fact, I've not had any proper treatment apart from massages that a lot of people had. It's not. My parents they're both medical doctors, so they are very traditional in the way that they think medicine is it. Western medicine, this is Western is it. And so I've never actually been exposed to the world of complementary therapy or alternative therapies. Well, here I am.
Sure. Can I ask then? So, how do your parents? What's their experience now with you teaching Bowen? Have you had the opportunity to treat them and share with them, what you're doing, and what's their reflection on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was still quite young when I was started out Bowen. I was a lot younger then, 8, 9 years ago, and so I didn't have the funding at all. So the funding is from my parents. So I had to have that conversation with them, telling them, look, this is what I'm trying to do. This is a therapy that I want to learn, and it's so and so how much. And initially, the thoughts were, what are you doing? What is this Bowen you're talking about? They're obviously they're familiar with physio, and they were actually pushing me towards the physio side of things. But I was trying to, I convinced them. I tried to explain to them what it is to my best understanding back then, to what I've read online, and so very kindly they did open up. It wasn't until I'd say maybe 5, 6 years down the line when they start to understand a little bit more, because they've done their own research and want trying to understand what I'm trying to do. And unfortunately, we don't live in the same. So they're still in Hong Kong. I live in the UK, obviously, so I don't get to see them much. Meaning, I don't get to actually show them what I do. So when they do come and visit, it's not enough time to really I have treated them, but not to the extent of, oh, I'm going to explain everything to you. This is what I'm doing, and what have you. So it wasn't until very recently that they finally, I don't think accept is the word, but understand what my passion is, and why my passion in this side of things. And actually, my dad's quite into it now. My dad's read more and more into it, and he even told me, "Oh, there's a college in Hong Kong teaching Bowen." And so he's getting quite interested in it. My mum's a little bit more open, so she's always go for it, Jun. Whatever you like. But yeah, so slowly changing the minds.
Yeah.
I have found that medical doctors, there are different point of views in terms of complementary therapies outside of medicine, outside of Western medicine. But we're changing the world one step at a time.
Yeah,
Starting with my parents.
and well, I think that was an important point to highlight, you see, is just that when you've come from having parents who are in such a conventional background within medicine, really useful that you've been able to have those conversations, that even when they didn't quite understand, they still supported you in that, and that over time they're seeing the value of the work to a point where they're supportive of it. So, I think those are beautiful things. And I think there are so many practitioners who are having conversations with medical doctors, and it's starting to create that shift, especially because I think more and more the limitations of conventional medical treatment are being highlighted, especially in relation to kind of chronic conditions, chronic pain conditions, and that we can't just keep on medicating and using what to me is quite a limited model in physio, it seems, within the UK NHS. They seem to be quite static in what they're using, although in private physio we see a lot more kind of adaptability. So great that you've been able to do that, and fabulous to your parents for being there with you on that.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with that. I think the gap between if there is a gap between traditional medicine and us, the complementary, is always there's a language barrier as well. The language we use is completely different, and the training obviously is completely different also. And so there needs to be a bridge where we can communicate with each other to understand from each person's point of view, or each part's point of view, how therapy works, how medicine works, and how we can integrate two together. And not to fight against each other, not to go, okay, medicine only gives you pills and only gives you surgery. They are important. In fact, the Western world, survive on that and build on that. But on top of that, like you said, it's quite restrictive. It's static because it's so heavily regulated. Not that is the bad thing. Obviously, regulation is very, very good. The fact is that there are other things that we can provide human in general for our benefits, our own well-being. And medicine is not the only answer. There is also, that's why we call complementary therapy. We complement each other. We help, we build on each other. And I think that's what BTPA is trying to do as well, actually getting the words out there so that the wider population know about us, including the medicine side of world.
Absolutely. And I think that it's one of the most important things. My personal mission with this overall is that we understand the value in each approach. And, schools of Bowen, chiro, osteo, physio, conventional medical, everybody has a place and everybody has a value within the role of health and supporting health within people and animals. And it's about recognizing what each area is best at and using us for what we're best at, and not trying to do things that are better served by other approaches. And even within the world of, let's say, of pain management, absolutely right, there's a role in pain relief, there's a role in surgery, there's a role in physio. It's about being able to assess appropriately when to use those interventions. And I'm always from the point of view of, let's do the thing that is the least problematic and the least likely to cause any problems, see how we get on with that, and then we escalate, with kind of surgery being the end point of, if nothing else is working and we think a surgical intervention will, then that's where we go. And then we come back down the scale to help manage what happens after a surgical intervention. We know very well that Bowen is a great tool for helping people in recovery post-surgery. So, again, it's good as well. And I love when I'm speaking to you as teachers that we seem to be much more of this mindset that we have to work as a unitary body with our own specialisms and our own interests and our own aspects to the model, but that we're all evolving that and looking at the value of other approaches and how that informs what we're doing.
Absolutely. There is a time and space for each part, the traditional part and us. And I think the integration of the two is very important, vitally important, and actually trying to get that more accessible to the wider public. We are still considered as a private sector. They still have to pay directly for our services. And BTPA is doing a brilliant job in actually getting the association recognized by several insurances now, so which is fantastic. And actually putting putting us forefront into people's mind, basically, when they go, when the doctors offer them, okay, you might need this, you might need that, this medicine, that surgery, actually giving them an extra option go, or you can see if you can go down a non-invasive, more gentle approach, like you said, another approach where you don't do anything drastic to the body and see how the body react first. And if that works, fantastic. Relieve the NHS and gives you good results. Then it's win-win.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we're looking for as well. So one of the things that I'm really interested in with your work is that you've gone into this neurological approach, and the CPD that you're teaching for College of Bowen Studies is about neurological assessment and tools. So give us a little introduction into what it is that you're sharing with people. And there's a part 1 and a part 2 in that as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So this is probably a part 3. I think there's so many things so many things we don't know, but there's so many things we already know that I'm trying to get more therapists familiar with. With the workshop, we start off with the introduction of muscle testing. Now, muscle testing has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. In fact, a lot of physicians used to use it. Neurologists still use it. And like yourself, kinesiology use it, and a lot of other modality as well. So it is an assessment tool to see essentially what the person's nervous system is doing. So we talk about different neurological states. So we have the healthy state, the normal tonic state, and we have the weak state, the hypotonic state, and too strong state, hypertonic state. Depending on what you find using muscle testing, you can start to gauge and assess what's going on with the body. So let's strip back and talk about the teaching of Bowen first. So obviously we get taught how to place our hands. We get taught page 1 to 3, call 1 to 3, however you like to call it, and almost like a procedure recipe kind of approach to the problem, which is fantastic because it's a holistic treatment. It's easy to learn, easy to follow, and students obviously they remember and they learn the procedures and they can just follow the procedure. From my point of view, that's fantastic for most therapists. But now, if you want to go a little bit deeper into what what your client is presented with, there needs to be assessments. And unfortunately, within the core teaching, we do talk about assessments, but it's not focused on, you learn a few, but it's not here. Let's have a whole course of assessments. And that's part of the reason why I've created this course. So there are many assessments out there. There are mobility assessments, strength assessments, and all sorts. I've gone down the route of using muscle testing as a assessment. It doesn't suit everybody, I understand that, but it's a very good tool to give you an insight of your client. So that's essentially what the course is about. Part 1 especially is all on muscle testing. And I also throw in a few neurological tools. That's why it's also got a sort of tools name in it. Neurological tools to find out why a person's neurological state might be different from normal, different from a healthy state. And actually, from information gathered there, we can start to figure out the root cause, or closer to the root cause of what might be causing the symptoms, such as pain, such as mobility, performance, that kind of situation. It is my passion to get people slowly go away from the recipe sort of situation where you always go page 1 to 3 and 3 procedures. And although that's the way we teach it, and new students and new therapists find comfort in that, which is fantastic. They need to be comfortable with what they're doing. But at the same time, it can be restrictive as you go along. Because if you don't break away from that, then your library of knowledge is restricted to the procedures you know. So when I teach my new students, I always tell them, these are the procedures I'm going to teach you throughout the course. They are great, and stick with them. And when you start, they're great, but actually start playing with them. You don't always have to place your hands in the same place. With assessment, you get to have a better understanding where you might want to do the moves, and when you might want to do the breaks as well. So with the assessment, I also talk about another way of finding where to put that break in, the 2 minutes break or 5 minutes break in. And yeah, so that's my passion. That's my so there's part 1, part 2. Like I said, there might be part 3, but there's just so much to throw out there, and it's also my passion to teach as well.
Yeah, I love that as well, and I think that again, you're echoing what is coming through much more in a lot of the people I've interviewed over the last year or so, in the fact that we need that initial framework. We need a pattern to be able to say, if you follow this, this will deal with some stuff. And I think you put it beautifully by saying there's a comfort in having a structure. But one of my first kinesiology teacher, she always used to say that the framework is there to give you that until you don't need that anymore. And again, it comes back down to the map is not the territory. You know, the textbook is not the body that you're working on. So it's then starting to be able to, once you've got that grounding, to be able to then branch out and look at the individuality of each client that you're seeing, see what they need, see how adaptation of what you know is going to benefit them and support them.
Absolutely. It's almost like the traditional medicine. You go to the GP for most things, most non-emergency things, and the GP will look at you as a whole to go, okay, what are your symptoms, and find out what's going on. And then that's important, because that, reach out to most people. But then the GP then go, okay, you might need to see this person to specialize in. The framework that I have in my mind is similar to that. So you have the library of a treatment, so the whole body treatment situation. But sometimes if you find, okay, the clients might not be responding so well to this procedure or that procedure, the question is, what now? What can I do? So I'm giving people another option, another assessment to find out, okay, what this person might actually need specifically. So in a way, you can have the treatment, have the holistic treatment, and then specialize in, like, for I say specialize, but focus on a limb or an area first, and then see if that responds. So it's another option to provide treatments.
Yeah. And what got you interested in using manual muscle testing? What was the draw for you on that? Where did you first come across it, and how did you develop your skills within that?
Yeah, so I will give credit to where credit is due. Gus. So my own Bowen therapy, my Bowen teacher, Gus, who's a fantastic teacher, fantastic therapist as well, and we still stay in touch. So Gus went on to started this course called PDTR, and he flew all the way to Iceland to do it. I think, in fact, he did it with Paula, with David. And so I saw him posting on his Instagram about this course. And so I messaged him about it and said, oh, wow, you're going all the way to Iceland to do this course. It must be quite cool. What's going on? And so he gave me an intro to it. And then that's when I started looking into it. As you do, you go on Google, you go on YouTube. And I saw a couple of videos on YouTube of small demos. And it just absolutely blew my mind what they were showing in the video. How muscle testing and a few things you can do to the body can completely change how the body move, completely change how the body respond. And so I dove very deeply into it. Unfortunately, when I looked at it, they already started the course in the UK. So I couldn't jump on it. So I have to wait a whole year before I can jump on it at the next course. But once I go into it, don't get me wrong, the course content is immense. It's nothing like I've never ever done before. It's harder than university. The course was so concentrated, but there's just a vast amount of knowledge behind it. So that got me into muscle testing. And muscle testing, as you know, it needs practice. You need to keep doing it to get a real feel of when a muscle is strong, when a muscle is weak. And so there's still a lot of work into it. But so it's my passion to start introducing people into it, start people thinking not just to use muscle testing, but actually there are a lot more outside of what you get taught within the college. There's a lot more, and that comes with CPD as well. Don't stop there, and don't just stop within the confines of Bowen. Also, there are tools outside of Bowen you can bring into your clinic within your Bowen treatment. And so that's where I've almost steer myself to muscle testing, and I just find it really, really cool. And as a youngster, seeing cool things, I dive head first into it and look what I can do.
No, I can totally get that as well. My introduction to kinesiology, I think I was 24 when I first got introduced to it. Very much as what at that point was classed as a bioenergetic assessment tool. So the school of kinesiology I originally trained in was using it much more to look at the bioenergy flow within the meridian system. And then over time, I explored more into applied kinesiology. And so I talk about it very much as a neurological response system, that it's a way, and I give credit to Sue Lilly, who was the very first kinesiology teacher that I encountered. And she always just used to frame it as hacking the body's computer.
Yeah.
So I see it as that when you take your car to the garage and they plug it into diagnostics, it's a way for us to get into that central nervous system, because the whole system is working in a unitary fashion anyway. I describe it as holographic. Every part of it knows what every other part is doing all the time. And it's just being able to use that as a diagnostic tool to be able to assess within the nervous system whether or not something is creating stability or instability.
Yes.
So it's an incredible tool. And again, I still think it's cool. I still love watching the expression on every new client's face when I use kinesiology for the first time and show them how a muscle will inhibit. And it's just like mind-blowing.
It is. You put it beautifully there. It's a programming. We're looking at the program of a person. So, you use the car analogy. I use that analogy quite often as well. So, bringing your car to the garage, and let's say, you're going to the garage for a busted tire, and they change the tire, but then as soon as you drive again, it busts again. Then the question is not, okay, is it the tire? Quite possibly something's gone wrong within the system that's causing, maybe the entire weight is put on, when you're driving, all the weight's on that tire. And so it doesn't matter how many times you replace that tire or fix that tire, it is going to bust again. Same with the body, coming from a neurological point of view, even down to things like biomechanics, that's still controlled by your brain. Your muscle tensions in the body, that's pulling one joint out of, I don't like the word misalignment, but getting you in balance, pelvic imbalance, shoulder girdle imbalance, that's still controlled by your brain. Your brain is doing the job to protect you, and so if you forcibly move something back into alignment and not deal with the neurological side of things, it will just go back. It's the programming issue, not a hardware issue. If it's a hardware issue, okay, right. So then we look at it differently. If something's actually broken, or let's say one bone is actually shorter than the other, then we need to manage it in other ways. Maybe refer to GP, maybe exercise to go with it, or some other. But if it's not, if it's an actual neurological issue, we need to deal with the programming. So you put it beautifully there with that analogy. I like that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I mean, I extend my analogy quite far within my clients, and I kind of start off with suggesting that if they had an obscenely expensive car, they wouldn't be putting cheap fuel in it. They wouldn't put cheap parts in it. They'd have it regularly serviced to make sure it stayed okay, and they'd learn to drive it better. And then I reflect back that they are the obscenely expensive car, and they need to think about all of that stuff together. But I also like the fact that you spoke into that about the nature of causality versus symptom. And so often we're treating symptomatically. And as you say, if the tire keeps blowing, it shows that we're not focused in the right place. And I was really interested in the article that's on the CBS site on the Neurological Approach, where you talked about input, process, and output, and some of the time delays on that. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a neurological point of view, our brain needs input in order for it to react. Our brain is very much almost like a reactive thing, a reactive engine. So what I mean by that, when I'm going out on like a nice day on today, right? I go out, I see bright light, and that is the input, so the external input. That light hits my photoreceptor at the back of my eyes. That takes time to get to the brain, although to us it feels like instant, but there is a small delay. Gets to the brain, your brain still needs to calculate and process that information before it reacts. And the reaction is could be a constriction of the pupils to reduce the amount of light going to the brain. But your brain needs that input, and it's not instant, right? So there's a delay there. And then there's a delay in the brain processing that input. And then there's a delay from when they decide what to do to get to your eye muscles to contract it. Now, that delay, although seemingly instant, it's there, and we actually need to provide our brain that small delay, that time difference, in order to fully process information, especially when it comes to treatment. So I used light as an example earlier. That is probably a poor example because your brain reacts very quickly. In fact, to the brain, it's a threat. Bright light is actually a threat. Your brain will go, I need to protect my eyes. I'm going to contract really quickly. Some information, your brain will respond a little bit slower. Many things, such as food, right? Food intake. Sometimes it takes some time to react to whatever food you're eating. Hours, sometimes it take days, and there's that time delay. Same with even things that are neurotoxins. So let's say you're allergic to a bee sting, right? Your bee sting you, your brain still needs to calculate and see what's going on before it reacts to it. And so there's a time delay between your sting and the rash coming up, or the inflammation gets into place. Same with treatment. And that's where the breaks is so important. But knowing where and when to give the breaks is just as important. And that's why the part 1 and part 2 of my workshop talk about that, how to find and when to place the break, and using breaks strategically. So to break it down, let's say you're treating someone, you put in a couple moves. Traditionally, the get teach, or the way I teach my brand new students is, you do certain few moves, you give a break here, and there's no question asked. That's where the break is, right? And then you do a few, and then when the students ask, why then? Why not a little bit later? Why not a little bit earlier? I think the question then is lost. The answer is lost of, okay, why? The question the teachers might ask ourselves is, why are we taught this way? Now, I find through a lot of experimenting with my clients, thank you clients for letting me experiment with them with permission, the break where we get taught quite often sits perfectly of the amount of information that the brain has received, and that's when the brain needs some time to process that. And on average, where we are taught where the breaks are, where I teach where the breaks are following the procedure, that on average, that is the right place. That is the right place where a good amount of information, and then so that's the input. The Bowen moves are the input, and then you need the processing time. The process time is the break. Then comes the output, right? Then the brain starts to change the tissue tension, to change the inflammatory response, what have you. That's stripping it down. That's where it is. At times, you will have cases where the breaks shouldn't be there, or should be a little bit later. Should have been a little bit earlier. Sometimes I treat clients after the first 2 moves. I need a break. Maybe they're coming in for a lower back problem, and I find it's appropriate to give it break there. And so actually having a tool to assess when and where to give a break, I think that's very powerful. I think moving Bowen forward, especially. Not to, because if you talk to medical the traditional, sorry, I'm rambling here.
You're doing great, John. Keep going. That's wonderful.
If we're talking to traditional medicine side of things, and you present them with our traditional way of treating, what I call a treatment by recipe, so following a recipe, I think there is some sort of resistance to that, of why is it one size fit all? Why is there's no assessment? If you go to a physio, they will do assessments. That's probably the first thing they do. Either palpation, either muscle testing, range of motion testing. So if we change our belief to fit in their belief, I think there's a better acceptance there of them recognizing us and going, okay, they know what they're doing. Of course, we do know what we're doing. We just need to present ourselves a little bit better. I've lost myself now, but yes, okay. So coming back to the recipe, so I think It's important to teach these recipes. Very important to teach recipes. It's easy to learn, like I said earlier, easy to apply, and it fits most clients. But at the same time, we also need to be able to have the flexibility of changing how we work. Yeah, so that brings me back to the neurological assessment. That's why I'm teaching this stuff. I want more people to know it, to actually get to do it and see how cool this is.
I love that, John, and the passion about this is so important. And I think that every teacher makes the right case for the fact that there's so much information for us to learn, and as Bowen therapists we do learn relatively quickly in comparison to, let's say, chiro, physio, osteo. We can pack a lot into a short period of time because of the graceful simplicity within Bowen technique, but our learning doesn't stop at that point. And once we've got a basic treatment protocol, the expansion of that out and the development of that, I can remember last year, Graham Pennington talking about how one of the presentations that he was teaching us in his targeting primary dysfunction, it had taken him 25 years to work out why that showed up.
Yeah.
So there's this beautiful evolution that is taking place from a basic structure into a more complex that we can look at individuals. And I remember Jordan Peterson years ago making a statement that the ultimate minority is the individual, that we're actually looking at the world from such an individualized basis that we do need a way to adjust around that. But I also found it interesting as you were speaking that there's an irony within the medical system in the fact that why are we using a recipe-based approach rather than an individualized approach? And yet, from a point of view of doing research, we have to clinically repeat the same thing for every person who's got a similar thing so that we can see the likelihood of that being effective. So it's a bit of a push me pull you in the fact that we need that individualization, and we know that individualization is so important, and yet we need to be able to show how repeating the same procedure for everybody will give a beneficial outcome in a vast majority of people.
Absolutely. That's why I think the way traditionally Bowen is taught, it's beautiful because it covers pretty much everything. All clients need all symptoms, and it works a huge amount of percentage is very, very high. And quite often students don't even, new students especially, when they have not been in body work at all, they find, they're getting results and they go, how does that happen? I'm just practicing. How amazing is this? That's why, how powerful Bowen therapy is. And that's also comes with the importance of pushing it to the general public. But you're so right. We need an approach where it's repeatable and so replicable and also easily accessible, so that we can calculate and we can see the effectiveness of Bowen as a whole. I think that's just as important as specializing in later on down the line. Once you've developed your standard Bowen, and then I think that's just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned earlier that in the neurological assessment and tools training, there are tools. Could you give us an example of some of the neurological tools that you're sharing within that?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many. So there are three main states of a muscle. So we have the normal state, which is nice and healthy. It can engage and it can inhibit. It can switch off also. Let's just use language of switching on and off. So muscles can contract and they can relax. So on and off. So in a healthy muscle, it can switch on and switch off. In a weak muscle, so a hypotonic muscle, it's inhibited. It can't switch on. It's just permanently on off. And then you have the hypertonic, what I call too strong, the tight and solid muscle, where it's permanently on. It just won't inhibit. So obviously the first state, the normal muscle, healthy muscle, is what we want to achieve, because that's a good state we should be in. And then the two abnormal states, we need to first find out where they are, so what muscle it is that's weak or too strong, and then we need to find out how to normalize it, even if it's just temporarily, how to normalize it back into a normal state. One of the or two of the tools actually we do every single day. It's not really I just call it a tool, but actually we do it without learning. Even any layperson will be doing it without learning. So if you walk into, let's say, a coffee table and you bang your shin, the first thing you do is you hold it, right? You go, oh, that's really painful. You either hold it or you rub it. Oh, that's really, really, really painful. There you go. I've just showed you two of the tools. Compression and rubbing actually override the receptive signal, so the signal coming from the nerve ending to the brain. Let's say you have a weak muscle, right? Let's say I'm testing a delta muscle here, and it's weak. If you rub that muscle, it will go strong. And because you're disrupting that signal going to the brain, albeit temporarily. Now, from there, you can try to find out whether there's one area where you rub or compress that makes everything, all muscles to test normal again. Then you go, okay, that is likelihood a big target to target. Let's go there. Let's apply a Bowen move there. Then after that, I'll put in the break. That's essentially it. So that's the two tools that I said, where it's not really a tool. It's just something that you and I are doing, but not strategically in the treatment point of view. And when people, when I teach, I've run this workshop a couple of times, 3 times now. And when students first see, how just simple, action like that or compressing can make a huge difference to the muscle, it's eye-opening. That's why I say it's cool. It's eye-opening, but how powerful our brain actually is when it comes to our body. And our brain does control everything. It just needs the right input to switch, to change how your body function. And then students quite often go, I'll just get a client, just keep doing this for the rest of their life, and they will have no pain.
If only it were that simple, eh?
Yeah.
And it's beautiful as well, because it highlights something that in a lot of traditional kinesiology we work a lot with, which is neurolymphatics.
Yes.
And the thing I love about the neurolymphatics is they can be quite distal to where the actual muscle that you're testing is. So for example, I love the fact the liver reflex underneath the right breast there,
Yes.
and you're working with the pecs, and
Yes.
you can rub that reflex, and you can use the spinal reflexes on the spine, and those pecs muscles will just re-engage, and they seem really stable. I love it.
Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. How I always ask the question from a traditional Chinese medicine point of view, because I am obviously from Hong Kong, so I am Chinese. So I grew up in an environment where people do talk about meridians, and it's a normal thing. It's just part of our care, but we've had that knowledge for, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of years. I've seen Chinese scripts that are hundreds of years ago, and they're already drawing lines and putting dots around them. How did they discover that in the first place? That is mind blowing. And why aren't we using that knowledge as a normal care now in the Western world? The knowledge is there, and we just need to use it. It's beautiful, isn't it? How we have different reflexive points. Well, obviously we call it points, but even give them names. But what they really are, it's anyone's guess, really.
Yeah, sure.
How you can put a hand on a point and it changes the entire body's presentation. Absolutely incredible.
First time I ever saw the fascia sinew channel maps that come from Chinese medicine as well. And I was just like, man, that explains so much. And now I understand where Tom Meyer's got his inspiration from in the anastrains. And it was just like, wow, this changes the picture of the body completely, and just influencing those zones. And this is why I think even when you've got tissues that are too tender or too inflamed to directly treat them, I always just think about, well, what fascia sinew channels, what meridians can we influence further away from there, and see how the tissue that we're really targeting is responding.
Absolutely. So one of the very common questions I've been asked many times now is, what if the client is just either too frail to test, or it's just too painful to test that limb? There are so many, and the answer always has an element of me explaining that the body is just one system. Just because that area is painful doesn't mean that you can't use the rest of the body to find out what's going on there. It's just still one system. And you just need to know how to use this system that we have. It's incredible, isn't it? Because this is all in our brain.
Yeah.
not the knowledge, but all this, everything that runs in the body is done without our control.
Yes.
Yet consciously, human knowledge as a whole, we don't have all the knowledge of how we run our own system. So I think that's mind-boggling, but also beautiful. You know, there's so much mystery behind us as a being.
Yeah.
There's still so much we don't understand. And it's, you know, every day I learn something new. It's incredible.
And this is it. I'm reminding people all the time, clients all the time, that nearly everything their body does is involuntary and they don't need to take care of any of it. Growing hair, digesting food, breathing while you're asleep. It's all taking place for you. We're like a glorified passenger in this incredible team. And I always find it fun as well to remind people when they talk, for instance, about, you know, I've got tight hamstrings, and to say to them, well, if we gave you a general anesthetic, we could move that limb into any position that we wanted, because at that point the nervous system is being disconnected to a point. So actually it's not a tight muscle, it's an overengaged nervous system. And if that's the case, what do we have to change so that that nervous system is in a more optimal state?
100%. 100%. I think a lot of layperson, so our clients, think of the body. I think also coming from a medical side of point of view, where we have specialization of a joint doctor, we have orthopedic, we have neurosurgeons. You know, we have specific doctors for specific things. I think then that actually trickle down to the layperson of, if it's hamstring problem, it's a hamstring problem. Right? If it's an ankle problem, it's an ankle problem, and not actually look at the whole picture. Why is that ankle? And you know, we get talk about, although quite a lot, we talk about biomechanics. You know how you know, an ankle problem can lead to tensions elsewhere, even the upper body. And I think that kind of approach is, it's, although it's just one way of looking at things, and we have many way of looking at the body, but it's a good way to understanding, not just from a therapist's point of view, but also from client's point of view. That is also another passion of mine, is actually getting my clients educated in terms of the body, right? And actually getting them to understand where pain comes from and what pain is, and that you don't always have damage that goes with pain. You can have pain without damage also, and actually getting them to understand the body a little bit better. That is another passion of mine, just putting out words on it. So during my sessions, I sometimes talk quite a bit.
No, it's exciting though, and you know, my reflection is that my clients like that. They want to be involved, and the better they understand themselves, and the better that they're going away and actually, when they're navigating the environment that they're in, because they're only with us for a very short period of time. But if we can inspire that awareness in them to consider how they're moving, what they're doing with a thing, even, you know, I talk about, what were you thinking about just before the thing happened?
Yeah.
You know, because we don't realize how much that disembodied mind state, where we're no longer present with the body, can be part of the reason why we end up with the thing, because of what else we're focusing on.
Yeah, so that's actually part two of my neurological tools. Is I start to introduce students to how stress can exhibit as a physical problem, right? How stress can turn your entire body into a weak state, or a too strong state, you know, a hyper state, and actually getting them to understand that it is not the physical body and the mental body. It's still just one body. It's just still one system. Doesn't matter, you know, how much you want to separate them to, one will affect the other. That's another thing that I think clients need to understand, is that as well, that when you're stressed, your symptoms will go up. The intensity of symptoms will go up, because that's this controlling it. You know,
Yeah.
not your hamstring, not your ankle.
Yeah. And I think that's such a fundamental thing in the integral theory, the model that I use. We talk about being subjective and objective being the two sides of the same coin, with the subjective not having a location in time and space, the objective having a location in time and space. So the mind and the body are just the subjective and objective sides of each other.
That's
And for
beautiful.
example, if you stub your toe, you're going to make thoughts about that, however that response is. But at the same time, if you're thinking about something that's stressful, you will change your body shape in relation to that, because a response in one creates a reflection in the other, and it doesn't matter which way it goes, and we end up wearing the shape that the mind creates.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm currently listening to an audiobook that's written by an illusionist, Keith Barry, in fact, and he was from Ireland, and he was explaining that how a lot of mentalists or illusionists practice and master reading someone's posture, reading subtle signs in the body, even things like lie detection. There are so much to it. We can't consciously, quite often, we can't control how our body present ourselves. In fact, in terms of pain, we have so little, we have some control, but predominantly the existence of pain, we can't just switch it off, right? We can't go, oh, I'm going to switch it off today, right? We can't do that. There's so much that our subconscious side of the brain, or the midbrain, or however, that part of the brain exhibit itself, that as a therapist, actually it's good for us to start to learn about these signs and start to see a person coming into our clinic or coming into our care and start reading these things and go, okay, right, this person is clearly in a not good state, or okay, actually they're not doing too bad, and actually adjusting your treatment according to that, not to overload the body, or maybe okay, today in a good state, maybe it will push a little bit, see how they respond. I think that's very, very important, and that's not just from complementary side point of view. I think also traditional medicine, that they need to integrate that somehow, because when the client is, or when their patient is very, quite often they are very stressed. If you go to the doctor, you got something not quite right, and so you're stressed. Actually, helping calm that down, that will also calm the symptom down, because bring us back to the point of it's just one system. But quite often, the doctors, especially from an NHS point of view, they haven't got the resources, they haven't got the time, unfortunately. Hopefully one day they do, but unfortunately, currently they just haven't got the resources to help them that way. They just look at, okay, physically you're doing this, so let's do something about it, to not address the mental side of things as well. And unless, of course, if they go in for mental problems specifically.
Which then, the juxtaposition of that is they often don't look at what physical stresses might be contributing towards the mental problems as well, from diet, environment, all sorts of, posture, being too sedentary, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's another reason why I really love, because I teach Qigong as well. I've been doing it myself for 35 years and teaching for the last 10. And again, it's that watching of where people's minds go. Are they really in touch with that enteric response in their bodies, or are they thinking about the shopping or something else?
Yeah.
And especially when we're doing like static standing work and we're really working on that internal alignment and that sense of harmony, it's like you can see the people whose minds have run away from their bodies because they're restless and they lose their posture and they're not adjusting. So I always find it really fascinating just to watch what people do, how they respond, even to the language that they give them. I mean, when I'm talking about muscle testing, I'm talking about when I say a thing to you or I suggest a thing to you, you can watch those subtle changes. You give somebody bad news and it's like, give them good news, and you see those changes.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. So, in fact, there are therapies like NLP, where they use language, the power of language, to change how the brain react to things. I think, as much as I like to, it's very hard to encompass everything in the treatment. And I think that's why there's the specialism of some people. Things like hypnotherapy, absolutely beautiful. I use it on myself every single day. So there are things that are completely outside of our traditional NHS care, right? Even in the private sectors, private hospital care, that a lot of people don't even know. The general public don't even know. Quite often, if you say NLP, some people will know, but a lot of people won't know. Or if you say things like hypnotherapy, people just look at you funny, thinking you're going to turn them into a chicken or something. But clinical hypnotherapy is so powerful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Helps people quit in just one session, or quit smoking in just one session. That has been done. It's a powerful tool. But yeah, so going back into it's just specializing, and that's where the route I'm going down. The neurological assessment using muscle testing, and really dive deep into. But your point of languages, it's also that is something I teach a lot of my new students, is that our language can change so much of what your client is going to do or happen or respond. So pick your words very, very carefully, because they will respond to that. Right?
Yeah.
Even subconsciously, they will respond to that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been looking at something recently called the Clean Language Approach, and it's a very specific framework that's designed to help people with their metaphors, but also to try and make our questions as neutral as possible. So, for example, when somebody comes in and says, I have a pain, my question would be, well, what kind of pain is your pain? So that it's understanding how they're representing that view of it, and is there a way we can change that representation that supports them without us really giving it to them, but with them finding it itself. And it's amazing just using that clinically to look at when somebody says everything hurts, what kind of everything is everything?
Yeah.
And it's kind of
Yeah.
so it's amazing how it changes our perception of reality. And I look a lot for globalized language within people as well. So if they tell me everything hurts, I'll be like, what, like the top of your left ear? Does that hurt as well? And they'll be like, no. Okay, great. So do you have a pain 3 centimeters down from your right hip? No. Okay, great. So it's not everything then.
Yeah.
So then we start to kind of change the perception and the belief that somebody's carrying.
So important. So important, especially you would have seen clients who come in and like exactly that. They just come in and there's a dark cloud that follows them, and everything is painful, everything is crap in their life, and nothing's going well in their life. But quite often, actually, that's not true. That is just how they have changed their opinions, how they, like you said, the perspective from their perspective. Now they see the world like this. But actually, quite often it's not true. A lot of good things are going on for them. It's helping them find it, helping them. In fact, one of the things I talk to my clients about is gratitude, helping them be grateful of the things that they do have, the things that they can still do, and not just focus on the things they can't do. And that's where the language also it comes in so powerful. It's changing the mindset. I'll often say the existence of pain might not come from stress itself, but the stress is like fuel. It's like petrol that will pour into this tiny little flame, and then now it becomes a forest fire, right? Yeah. So it's how you talk about your pain or how you perceive your pain is just as important as actually dealing with the problem itself. I think you put it wonderfully there about using language also as a tool. So this clean language approach, I'm gonna look this up.
It's a great thing to read and understand, really. So one of the things we were chatting about before we started recording, you were telling me that you're now part of a WhatsApp, an online community that is supporting now. Is this just Bowen practitioners and Bowen students? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I started this WhatsApp group last year, the beginning of last year, in the hope of actually, as a community, creating a safe and friendly community for Bowen therapists of all stages. So it doesn't matter, you're still, even if you're not qualified, you can join this group. We used to have a Facebook group, or we still have a Facebook group, but I find that it's not very active. It's, and I think for a lot of people, posting it feels like a big thing compared to just a quick message on the WhatsApp. So I created this WhatsApp community. Within the community, there are subgroups. So we have the general chit chat group, where we talk about all things, and then we have things like business help. So we have a group. In fact, I have a professional business coach in there that helps people with that side of things also. And then I also have a treatment problem group where people present the case studies, ask questions, and everyone chip in. I am quite proud of this community, not for my doing, but the people in there. They really help each other. They contribute, and there's whenever someone's asked a question, there's so many answers that come up, and everyone's happy to chip in. Joe's in there, Joe Watley from CBS in there. Colin is also in there, and the purpose of the group is just help each other, because for my benefits also, because I'm learning from people sharing ideas and people asking questions. And I think I am biased. I created it, but I think it's a beautiful I think it's a beautiful community that I want more people to join in, and help each other.
Brilliant. So let's make sure that we, in the video description, we'll make sure we've got contacts for you. Obviously, we're going to have websites and other stuff in there. So if there's any Bowen practitioners or students who are listening who would like to join the community, get in touch with Jun and we'll sort that out with you.
Amazing.
Is this also part of what's fueled, you were talking earlier as well, that you're in the process of creating your kind of like hold your hand business development type stuff for Bowen practitioners? Is it part of having the community that's inspired some of that for you as well?
Yes. So I've been urged on by many of the students to go, okay, you need to do more webinars, you need to do more talks, because I talk a lot. So I am creating a kind of hold your hand, like you said, hold your hand situation program. I call it a program where either you're brand new or you're slightly more established. So that's kind of my market, where you want to push your own business a little bit further. I find that, especially for myself, when I first trained, there's so very little help for me to create the business. I had to research a ton on how to create a business, how to run the business properly. And obviously, I'm still learning that side of things myself also. But I want to give Bowen therapists a head start, because it's good that we have this therapy, but if we can't push the words out there because we are not getting clients, it's no good, really, especially for new students. And I have had, especially so when I was studying, the few students that were studying with me, a lot of them aren't practicing at all. So they've done the course, qualified, they've tried it for a few years, couldn't get clients, and they gave up, and it's really sad. Honestly, it's really, really sad. And so I want to give people that chance of, okay, let's build a business. From a business point of view, a huge percentage of small businesses don't survive past 5 years, never mind actually past that. So actually having a framework, which is what this program is about. So the program will encompass how to start the business and how to set up a business and how to generate new clients, how to manage your clients, and then also there's a side of how to provide the treatment the way you want to provide, and actually set in stone, explain to your client how this is going to work. So it's a whole program. It's a 9-step program that I'm creating. It will be out soon. And then there is also, I'm running webinars as well at the moment. So I've got one coming on the 7th of April, but I've got a few more dates put in, future dates, where we just pick a topic and we're going to dive deep into each topic. And there are topics, obviously, I'm most familiar with. I am planning to have guest speakers to come in for their specialty as well. So that's something I'm doing within the community. So that these are all posted on the community, and it's people to join in. And most of them are virtual, these webinars, obviously, so they're virtual. So they can join anywhere, anytime. They'll be recorded as well.
Brilliant. Perfect. I love that. Jun, it's been really interesting speaking to you. But before we finish today, because we've been cracking on now beautifully for over an hour. I love how much this has flowed. I love your passion as well. Now, you are what I class as the younger generation, the up and coming in the teachers, which is so perfect. We need this energy coming through. So I'm really grateful to you for being who you are in this. But what's your vision for where things go over the next 10 years? How would you like to see things evolving?
Absolutely. So I think the main thing, obviously, because I live in the UK, I want to push Bowen therapy in the UK. Within 10 years, honestly, I don't think we will be accepted as a therapy that traditional doctors can refer us to, but I want them to at least know about us. And actually accept the effectiveness of Bowen therapy. And that comes through a lot of work that CBS and BTPA and other people are doing as well. It's actually getting us recognized by insurance companies, because medical insurances are quite high up there in terms of what people go for. And so within my vision really is increase students and practitioner knowledge, and for myself obviously, and actually getting a good grounding of the language that the medical side of people use, and actually translate that into layman's term, and be actually getting more Bowen therapists out there, and just teach as many new students as possible, and make it become a common thing. People talk about physio is a common thing, and I want Bowen therapy as a bigger household name of go. You still have a lot of people go, so what is Bowen therapy? And so I want to start to erase that question a little bit more, to change the question of, so who's your Bowen therapist practitioner? And that's my visions, and that's why my passion in teaching also relies, that passion relies heavily on that. Is I want more people to know about Bowen, which obviously benefits me. We are at the end of the day, it needs to benefit myself as well, and I get to teach more, I get to talk more. I love talking. It all helps.
And again, this very much aligns with the aim of the BTPA to continue to promote. And it's, if anybody's listening to this who is a practitioner and you're not getting the footfall into your socials, remember, anytime that you tag the BTPA in any of your posts, we will share your stuff through our pages. And I just saw on our socials this morning, we've had nearly a 4,000 reach in the last month alone. So we're making good traffic out there, so we can help promote you. And it doesn't matter what your background is, what your school is. It doesn't matter if you're BTPA members or not. We are promoting Bowen. Of course, we would love you to come and be part of the PA if you're not. And obviously, it's one of the fast track routes to connect into CNHC, who, again, if you want that medical support, it's the CNHC register that's considered acceptable for Bowen and a number of other complementary therapies, kinesiology and so on. So it's there to help patients know that they can trust you and the levy of your training. So we've got to keep on doing the work we're doing, John.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Absolutely. Keep our passion up.
So thank you to everybody today for your time and attention. Really appreciate you listening in. It's been so exciting. I've just loved your energy, John, and thank you so much for taking the time this morning to talk to me. And we'll look forward to catching up with more wonderful speakers as we go along through this year. Remember to hit that like and subscribe down at the bottom, the boring business bit. Do it. And we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, John.
Take care.